Hi, everyone. I'm Steve. I'm here with David Wright. Thanks for being here, David.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
All right. So, David is a personal trainer at Parkway Athletic Club in Carson City. And we're going to talk about, you see so much of this stuff online, so many influencers with so many opinions about how often should you work a body part? How often should you lift weights? And not only how often, which would be your frequency, but what should your intensity level be? What should your volume be? We're going to talk about what you do and what I do. And the main thing here is everyone is different. You're going to have to do some experimenting for yourself. There is no one way fits all. There isn't. No matter what some fitness influencer tells you, there is no one perfect way for every human being because everyone's different. And we'll give you some examples on that. Now, if you guys are interested in our weight loss program, hit the QR code on the screen or use the link in the description. And if you like interviews with personal trainers, doctors, nutritionists, subscribe to the channel. All right. So now, David, we should say a lot of people know if they've been watching us that you are a physique competitor. That is unique in the fact that most people are not physique competitors. They're training, they're lifting weights for other reasons. Nobody should, if you're not competing, no one should be trying to get as lean as you get for a show. No one needs to go down to 4%.
Correct.
It's not even really healthy. It's just for show, right?
Absolutely.
Now, so everyone has different goals. Some people want to put muscle on. What is your age? Your age matters. If you're 22 and you have certain goals, it's going to be different than if you're my age in my 60s, when what my goals are and what works for me. Because what worked for me when I was 20 is not going to work for me as much now in my 60s. You're in your 40s and you have different goals. So here's some of the different opinions out there. Some people think that your intensity should be really high and all you need is one set. And that philosophy is, and everyone's got their own research to back up their opinions too. I've seen it all. That is 2 or 3 warm-up sets and then a very intense one set to failure to where you can't do anymore, and that's enough. That's very popular philosophy. It's less volume, but it's a really high intensity. There's a reason why I don't do that, and there's a reason why that doesn't work for me. Now, we were talking about before we turned this on that some people, look, I grew up, I had friends, I'm a hard gainer. I'm still skinny. At least I'm skinny and I'm not fat, even though some people on social media are really mean and they call me fat. I'm not. I'm thin. I've got small bones. I've always been a hard gainer. I always had to work harder to gain muscle. People would say, yeah, but Steve, you overtrained. That's why you're skinny. And no, that's not it. I've tried everything. All right. I've been doing this for putting weights on a broomstick when I was in first grade. So I've tried everything. I'm going to let you kind of get into what you're doing now, what you do. Let's start first with what you do on the off season. Off season is you don't have a show or a competition near. And so you're trying to gain muscle, right?
Right.
So let's talk about what you do, what you have found, because you've been doing this for a long time too.
Yep. Sure have.
And lost a lot of weight. So first explain, what do you do in the off season when you're trying to bulk up, you're trying to get bigger. Now, nobody tries to bulk up so much that they get up to 18% body fat. You're never going to be that. Even though that's pretty healthy for a lot of people. Well, for most men, 18% is lower than probably what most men are these days because most men are fat, sadly.
Yeah. So,
You're going to go up to maybe what, 12% at the most?
yeah, 12, maybe 13 at the most.
What do you do?
Yeah. So, I mean, off season, and it's just like you described it, it's really all that it is. The only difference between that and like a contest prep season is, you're trying to gain more muscle mass. So rather than being kind of in a calorie deficit, even a small one, and then kind of a bigger one as we get closer to the show to get super duper lean at 4%. The opposite is true during an off season where you're still not going in extraordinary excess of your calories, because that's one thing you don't want to do is you're not trying to get fat. What you're trying to do is gain muscle. So you do need some excess calories, but in those calories, I will tell you, one of the biggest things is more protein, more protein. And so what those, calories that are a little bit more than I might burn or close, it's going to be more protein that makes up those calories. So one of the big things that you see out there is, oh, I'm going to go and I'm going to bulk because it's off season. People are eating donuts and pizzas and crazy, 10,000 calorie meals or whatever. I've seen a lot of stuff online and even know people who bulk means just eat whatever the heck you want and go lift weights. Well, the problem with that is you gain all of that excess body fat during that period of time. So you say 18%, some people will go up even higher than that and they go, well, I'm just bulking. The problem is number one, you've got all of that excess body fat now that you didn't have before. And then, which that will mess with your metabolism also, because you went from being super thin and really, really lean, show ready for that day. And then all of a sudden you just threw it into a whole different universe. And so your body's whacked out going, what the heck is going on here? To keep yourself nice and level, basically all it is, when I'm not doing a show, I am eating more calories, but it's comprised mainly of a lot more, well, not a lot more, but more protein, maybe some more carbs, depending on what my goals are and where I'm at. But the goal of it all is to gain that muscle, but not gain a ton of body fat. You'll gain some, because like you said in the beginning, 4% body fat is not even healthy for the day of the show. But you just do it for that very short period of time, and then you start going back up here to more of a normal, level for a lean individual, but not something that's so extreme that you have to like really get down into it. It's something you can sustain for a long period of time as long as you rein in that diet. So in an off season for me, it's more about, eating more volume of food, but not, garbage food that will make me fat and not help me in muscle at all.
Okay, so when you're doing that, let's get dialed in on what do you do in the gym? How much volume? How many days a week do you work out? Volume meaning how many sets and repetitions? Frequency, how many times on a body part? What do you do when you're in that phase you're trying to gain muscle and that's your emphasis? Tell us about your workout.
Yeah. So for me, and again, starting off with everybody's going to be a little bit different, which will work for them. You and I were talking about that a little bit, but for me, right now I'm in contest prep. 19, well, at this point in time, a little under 19 weeks out from my first show this year. But, on an off season, it's not a lot different for me. And the reason why is because, again, I'm staying to the point where in my mind, it's a constant, I'm prepping for a show. We're not prepping down yet, but the training is at the level to where I'm at. Like right now, for instance, I'm training 7 days a week. And generally speaking, because of where my goals are, that's where I stay 6 to 7 days every week. Now, what does that look like in the gym? For me, typically it's going to, my back is going to have its own day, so to speak, or actually 2 of them in a week. My chest will also have 2 of its own days where I'm working that. And I'll probably
That's 4.
correct, 4 of the days. I'll probably throw abs in there for a couple of those days also. But then you'll have, for instance, off season, I'll usually have an arm and shoulder day. So either I'll separate those 2, or if I'm only going to work out 6 days, I'll put those 2 on the same day, and then a leg day in there. Now, I will tell you that during this last off season, which has been since September of last year, I did legs like once every 10 days. Why did I do that? Because the focus wasn't really on my legs. My legs are really well developed. My particular goals that I have for men's physique, they don't really focus on the legs. So for me, for that goal that I'm trying to get to, it was like, we need to build the upper body more. So we're going to focus as much time as possible on that. And yes, we still need to work the legs because it's very important, but we're going to do it on a lesser basis right now. But now that we're shifting into prep season, similar split, except for legs are once a week. Arms and shoulders have their separate days. So it does change. Now, volume wise, that hasn't changed a whole lot because generally depending on what I'm doing, what exercise, it's usually 3 to 4 sets, and whatever it is might be 10 to 15 reps. I'm trying to go super heavy on something, it's not going to be 15 reps, I guarantee you. It probably maybe be 10, but I'm not going to go so heavy to where, I mean, it's just like, if I'm doing a bench press, like my chest is just going to, rip in half. I don't go quite that heavy because I want to get the volume. I want to feel the activation in that muscle group that I'm using. And sometimes when you just go too heavy, you're using all sorts of other muscles to help do that movement, and you're really not getting like the chest as engaged as it needs to be. So for me, it's about the feeling that you get, that feeling here of what you should feel while you're doing that activation. And if you can't feel that, to me, it's an issue. That's a whole nother video, but that's kind of how I operate. I do go off of, 3 to 4 sets, but I'll base how many reps off of, okay, what does that feel like when I'm doing, kind of a lighter set than, pyramiding up for those sets. So that's kind of how I work. And again, everybody's going to be a little different on what works for them, but that's worked well for me.
Okay, now a lot of people are saying 7 days a week. Nobody recommends that. You have unique goals, and you're kind of on the bro split. But when you're working your back and your chest, like you said, you're also working your triceps and your biceps indirectly. Now, and then so you only have 1 day a week where you actually focus on your biceps and triceps. So that's all thought into this. Now, what I'm doing, someone in my 60s, I'm not trying to get under 10%. I'm sitting at about 13 and a half right now. But under 12 would be pretty lean for me. It would be pretty lean for anyone who's 20, let alone in their 60s. So a lot of people are saying 7 days a week, that's way too much. I've heard people say as few times as 2 times a week for 10 minutes, and they look good. That works for them. I'm not going to say, oh, don't do that or don't do this. You have to try it for yourself. And I've been trying and experimenting things for 50 years. So what I'm doing now is I work my legs 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's a lot. And again, you got to get your protein up. Protein has to be high, especially as you're older. If you're trying to gain, or you said as you're trying to gain, you bump up the protein, but as you're trying to cut, you also need to bump up the protein because you don't want to lose any of that precious muscle.
Correct.
So protein is critical. I try to get at least 180 grams of protein a day. My weight is between 170 and 175. So my Monday workout is squats, and I work all my legs, my calves. I do hamstrings, leg curls, everything. And I do lunges. On Wednesday, my second leg day, I focus on deadlifts and lunges. And then I work my hamstrings and calves again. Now on Monday, Wednesday, Friday also a leg day, is leg presses and lunges again. I just do some type of a lunge. And then the same as far as my hamstrings and my calves. Now on Monday, Wednesday, Friday also, I work my shoulders. Now, my intensity level is not really high because you have to match your intensity level to your recovery. If I'm training really, really hard with a lot of frequency 3 times a week, my body's not going to recover from that. But as I've aged, I've lowered my intensity, my volume was crazy when I was younger too. I did crazy amounts of volume, just crazy. And my intensity was high. What's different now is I'm not in the gym 3.5 hours a day, 6 days a week, which is what I was in my 20s. Now I'm in the gym for an hour to an hour and 20 minutes. And I'm not doing that same amount of volume, but my volume is still high comparatively compared to somebody else who is saying, you only need 1 set. 1 set would not work for me. Like I've said, I've got my buddies who all they got to do is look in the gym and they gain weight. They just take a peek in there and boom, their biceps grow. I'm not like that. I've had to work hard. Well, Steve, that's because you're overtraining. That's why you're skinny. No, I've tried everything. So on Tuesday and Thursdays, I do back, chest, biceps, and triceps. That's my Tuesday, Thursday workout. So shoulders 3 times a week, and then back, chest, and arms Tuesday, Thursday. That's what I'm doing right now. You got to change it up. You got to mix it up. You can go to a 3-day a week, a 3-day split, or a 3-day full body workout. A full day or a 3-day full body workout is you work your whole body Monday, Wednesday, Friday. A split would be you do push, pull, legs. Push on Monday, legs on Wednesday, pull or push, whichever one you didn't do on Monday, you do on Friday. You're working a muscle group once a week. That works too. So you just got to kind of find what works for you. That's really important. You have to find the frequency, how many times to be in the gym. How many times do you want to be in the gym? Look, you like to be in the gym, don't you?
Yeah, I certainly do.
I
Practically
do
live
too.
here.
And I'm in there 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I like it. It's fun. Sometimes I think to myself, you know what? I'm nuts. I think this is fun. I do think it's fun. I like being around the people, so fits my lifestyle better. I like it. Some people don't like to be in the gym. That's a bummer. If you're going in the gym to work out and you don't like being in there, that's kind of a bummer. But you may try 2 times a week, 3 times a week, and play with your intensity levels and so on. I do recommend that you're careful with the intensity as you get into my age, because something's just going to go. So
Yeah.
you got to be careful.
Yeah, and I think that you bring up a good point in terms of I've had people actually tell me, I mean, I don't understand why you work out 7 days a week. Isn't that bad for you? All these different things. And I said, well, here's the thing. I know, from experience. I mean, I've been in the fitness world for about 13 years at this point, and so the thing is I know for myself, I know what'll work and what won't work. It's not that I don't ever take a rest day or those things. Absolutely, I know my body. When my body feels like what, it needs a recharge day, then what, I don't go do cardio, I don't go lift weights, that's it. I mean, yeah, obviously come here to work at Parkway and all of those things. So I'll be in the gym, just not working out for myself. But everybody, as we kind of emphasize through this whole video, everybody's different. So for clients of mine as a personal trainer, they might start working out 2 days a week with me, and that's the only days maybe that they're coming in the gym. And then they start coming in on their own, maybe an extra day a week. Sometimes people are thinking they have to come to the gym and come and work out 5-6 days a week to get any results. And I'm like, hey, let's slow down a little bit, depending on your condition and like where conditioning and where you're at right now. Coming in 5 days a week could be problematic for you, because you're overworking yourself. It depends on where you're starting. So again, it's all about where you're going to be comfortable coming into the gym and the workout, so you can also properly recover, because that's one of the big things that people just don't do is recover enough for themselves. And that could mean different things for different people, but it's okay to not work out 7 days a week. It's okay to not work out 5 days a week, depending on where you're at. It's where you need to be set. Now, if you know somebody who works out 6 days a week, that doesn't mean you have to. I don't expect any of my clients, or heck, any of my friends, other than fellow competitors, to probably work out about as much as I do, but that's such a small population. You generally might be in this gym, you might see some people that are in here 6-7 days a week, but not that many, because everybody has those different goals. So just focus on what your goals are and what you're able to do comfortably and safely. It's like you said, especially, if we have medical conditions, or if we're 40 in their 60s, it's going to be different than when we were in our 20s. So you have to also take that into consideration.
Yeah. And, I'm curious, you guys, put in the comment section what you do, how many days a week. And I would say I might be a minority in that my volume is maybe too high for most people of all ages. I might be a minority. I just know it works for me. Put in the comment section what you do and what's worked for you and what hasn't worked. Because what I do and what you do certainly is not going to work for everyone.
Right.
And it's just, you got to figure it out for you. 2 days a week is probably going to work for most people. If you get your volume and your intensity right and you're in the gym Monday and Thursday, you're probably going to get benefits from that, probably most people. And you know what? Maybe better results than most people if you're just 2 times a week in the gym, full body workout. I'm just saying that doesn't work for me. Never has, probably never will. I need more volume. So, David, if people want to follow you on social media, see what you're doing, how do they do that?
So they can follow me on Instagram at davidwright_fitness, and that kind of my fitness journey where I'm at right now, my show prep, that kind of thing. And also on Instagram at Wright Fitness Training for more of a personal training side of things.
All right. Thanks for being here, David.
Thanks, Dave.